Bakugo is officially dead. Toya is alive and has awakened his quirk. Skeptic might just change the entire course of the story, and All For One's face has officially been revealed. How the freak are the heroes actually going to win this war? Let's talk about it. Hey! Wise. The chapter begins after the unfortunate death to Bakugo, and I think he massively expressed how all of us felt through the character Monoma. We get a quick flashback from Monoma witnessing Bakugo in the Class 1A vs 1B joint training arc, where he remembers the speech that Bakugo gave his team when they were fighting against Class B, saying, "I've made a pledge. I'll achieve absolute victory every time. We're taking this 4-0. No casualties. The strong don't settle for anything less." And in remembering this, Monoma is in complete shock, completely denying the reality that Bakugo is dead, telling a dead Bakugo that he can't die like this. And to make our emotions burst even harder, Horikoshi shows yet another panel of a lifeless Bakugo being washed over by not only a bloody-faced Best Jeanist, but in the distance we see Shigaraki still fighting along, almost as if Bakugo's dead body meant nothing to him. And as everyone is in shock at what happened to Bakugo, Best Jeanist would say the words that would confirm that Bakugo is dead. There is no pulse. His heart is ripped to shreds. The news immediately start to affect everyone, Mirio being one of the first to react, as he remembers the promise that he literally made a few minutes before Bakugo's death, saying that he wouldn't let Shigaraki lay a finger on anyone else until Deku gets there. And because he failed to save the one person that's closest to Deku, he, along with all the other heroes, begin to anger and despair immediately, running towards an All For Shigaraki, whom all he can do is just smile at the fact that Deku is going to be so angry when he sees Bakugo's dead body on the ground. Shigaraki then explains that putting so much responsibility on the shoulders of kids is the reason why Bakugo is dead, and all of those responsibilities Shigaraki placed on Aizawa Sensei's head. This is a crazy moment in the story, because frankly, Shigaraki is 100% right. Putting the responsibility of taking down the world's most dangerous villain to a 17-year-old boy is not the right answer under any stretch of the imagination. Yet the desperation of the heroes to defeat All For Shigaraki led to one of the most brightest stars' life to be taken away from him. Shigaraki then turned to the heroes and asking who wants to be another welcome present for Deku. And of course we see another person in the clutches of Shigaraki. And this time it's Mirko taking all the responsibility for why this had to happen, claiming that if she was a little bit faster, she would have been able to kill Shigaraki while he was still in his stabilization. But Shigaraki told her to not fret. The responsibility also goes on all the other heroes who tried to take him down. But even more so, the responsibilities are truly on the heroes who decided to desert their heroic duties, which ultimately made the heroes to choose to use inexperienced teenagers to fight on the front lines. All of these situations and decisions culminated in what transpired in this war. And even though the heroes tried to one-up the villains with everything they had, it just wasn't enough. And to make the situation even more worse, we travel all the way back to the fight with Dabi and Shoto, where we see Shoto and Ida in complete shock at what they are witnessing. All things considered, it looks like facing you first was for the best. I knew it. It's so much better in person. It's like I got a feel for it somehow. Just before you buried me in ice, I copied your move as a last-ditch effort. And as Burnin looked back to Shoto, telling him to run away, we see Dabi completely incinerating Onima while using the technique that Shoto specifically created to defeat Dabi, Flashfire Fist, Phosphor. So not only did All For Shigaraki kill Bakugo, but Shoto and Ida has to fight off against Dabi, who copied the exact technique Shoto created on his own, which was specifically made to defeat Dabi. Without a shadow of a doubt, there is not a single way that Ida and Shoto can win this fight. But luckily, they might not be fighting him for that much longer, because with this awakened Dabi, he calls out to Skeptic looking to find out Endeavor's location. And although we don't know how he's going to get there, Dabi is trying to end this forever, likely due to the fact that he realizes that his own life might be done relatively soon. But to make matters even worse, we find out that Skeptic is up to something that will change the entire course of this battle in a worse way than is already established. He goes on to gloat about how the heroes are making very stupid decisions and that he built a specific network that essentially allows him to locate anyone in the world. And he mentions that he will support Tomura Shigaraki and Reed Destro by assisting them in creating a world where no one is discriminated against because of their quirk. A world that is truly free from heroes and villains. But the craziest part about all of this is that Skeptic is trying to hack into the system that the heroes are using to keep up this electromagnetic barrier and all the electrical components that is within the UA coffin. And the scary part about this is that he was actually able to pull up a graph with the UA coffin's internal structure and has found out the exact location of all the civilians under the UA barrier. This is actually quite scary because if Skeptic now knows the exact structure of the UA barrier and also the UA coffin, he would be able to go into the system and completely turn off the electromagnetic barrier, which sadly would mean that Monoma and Aizawa would be dead because Shigaraki would immediately run towards them and kill them so that he can use his quirks. But even if Skeptic can't take away the electromagnetic barrier covering Shigaraki, knowing the exact location of the civilians puts the advantage significantly in the villain's hands because they can use the civilians' whereabouts as a hostage situation. So again, I have no idea how in the world the heroes are going to win. But apparently the kids that are under the UA barrier do. We see Rei, Fuyumi, and Natsu looking at a bunch of kids horseplaying in the UA barrier. Their teacher would immediately tell them what if the villains came, to which they would respond, it's gonna be okay. There's no way Todoroki and Bakugo and the others are going to lose this battle. Now these are the same kids that Bakugo and Shoto had to entertain during their remedial hero license training. But that just emphasizes how much the stakes are risen so much more because Bakugo is dead. And frankly, I don't think there's a single way Shoto can actually defeat Dabi. But even though the situation is getting worse, the worst possible thing that could ever happen happened. We go back to Gunga Mountain with Endeavor and Hawks versus All For One. And we see that All For One has effectively rewinded his entire body back to his prime. But the scariest part isn't the fact that he's a Chad back in his prime. The scariest part is the realization from his words, saying that the villains were too desperate in defending themselves in the previous war. So much so that they didn't really manage to accomplish anything. But this time, the heroes are the protectors and the villains are the invaders. So we'll keep moving forward until our dreams come true. Insinuating that unlike the Paranormal Liberation War arc, where the heroes were the one who enforced their will onto the villains, making it so that the villains are on defense and the heroes are on offense. In this particular war, the heroes are on defense and the villains are on offense. And as the invaders, they will keep moving forward no matter what they have to do until their dreams come true. But let me know your thoughts on this chapter below, and you have to watch this video next.